And so you're
Yeah.
there in the late 60s. How, and we obviously had the fallout from Sputnik being the space program, the Apollo space program. So what was your involvement with that?
Yeah, well, at Princeton, Mike Lyon had what was called the Aerospace Systems Lab, and basically we were doing trajectory analysis and other things, and really figuring out how to do transfers and so we had some things that we were participating with the Apollo program with respect to the rendezvous maneuvers that need to be made and actually my PhD dissertation, optimal astronautical guidance, has all to do with optimal rendezvous and bringing entities together and so we're involved with that and looking at sort of other weird trajectories like grand tours and things like that and of course, then looking beyond Apollo to going to Mars, and so it was sort of well positioned. I had went down to Cape Kennedy for the launch of Apollo 11 and was there and saw that and got the opportunity to see that live. Actually, it's the only launch that I've seen live. And then was at the Houston Spacecraft Center for the first televised launch from the surface of the moon type of thing, because that was on Apollo 12. At 11, they didn't equip the place with cameras and so on but for 12, they had left cameras and left them on for the ascent. And we were into it. And then the bottom fell out. And so I got my PhD and finished it in the fall of 1970. And
bad time to be in aerospace.
By then, it was pretty well obvious that we weren't going to go much farther than what was planned for Apollo. And so I applied for teaching positions at that time. And I think this is true. I think there were only 3 aerospace engineering teaching positions that were even advertised in the fall of 1970. One was at the Naval Academy, one was at the Naval Postgraduate School, and the other one was at University of Minnesota. And I interviewed for all 3, and I think only one was filled, and it's the one I got at the University of Minnesota. And I went there, left Princeton on like Christmas Day with my U-Haul, my wife and I was driving the U-Haul and she was driving the car, and we headed to Minneapolis. Stopped at my sister's in Cleveland in a massive snowstorm because she lives sort of at, where the snow comes off of Lake Erie, and went on to Madison, Wisconsin. And Madison, I think that's when we took our plants out of the back of the U-Haul and brought them into the motel because it was like -7 outside. They died. They were outside like 3 seconds, gone. And I think the high when we hit Minneapolis the next day was, I don't know, minus whatever 5 or something like that. We're there. Whoa, what the hell? What are we doing here? It was great. The people were fantastic. It was really wonderful. And it was really nice. But I knew that better retrench myself and do a pivot. And luckily met some people in both aerospace and mechanical engineering well, let's take all this space age technology and let's apply it to save our cities. And I'm there. Boy, that sounds like a great idea. Why not? Hey, let's do it, and let's really focus on mobility and and apply automation to move people around, and and let's do it in these pods, and then let's make it just like being in a car, and let's make it so there are stations everywhere, and it's interconnected guideway, and they're all automated, and they all can go origin to destination. And there's this concept of personal rapid transit. Wow. And that sounds great. Look, everybody will be able to do it and get around, and mobility. And as I think the head of GM Research Lab said to me at a conference a few years later, he put his arm around me and he said, Alan, personal rapid transit, transportation system of the future, and always will be. I mean, boom, ba ba boom, and most it is really neat, and it is, and ended up with students designing systems for New Jersey and Las Vegas and Minneapolis and Denver and yeah, you could really provide mobility for everybody. New Jersey system, 10,000 stations. 10,000 miles of guideway, basically less than a 5-minute walk from every origin destination in the state. Fantastic. Safety, no problem, because you're sort of in a guideway, protect it, put it up in the air, whether or not anybody wants it going down their bedroom window is a whole other thing. Of course, if one looks at it, the fundamental problem with technology, and it still remains, is that you can do the vehicles, and you can do the automation, and you can do all that. The problem is the guideway and the right of way that you need to then acquire to be able to do it. So for New Jersey, that's at least $250 billion. If not $1 trillion. And and who's going to give you that money? I mean, that's a lot of begging, again, to Goldman Sachs and on Wall Street, say, hey yo, or to Washington, hey yo, even with the post-pandemic infrastructure, whatever. I mean, it's a lot of money. And so you say, well, I just want to get started. 40 years of looking at that, 40 plus years of investigating that technology. And there have been 3 systems that have been built worldwide, and none of them have grown from the first thing that they've, so.
And you were involved in one of those, right? The Morgantown.
The Morgantown's one of them, and we'll talk about it in a second. But the tough part of this stuff is not only to do the first one, but then the second one, third one, fourth one, and to do the hockey stick. Okay, so to do a hockey stick, you have to get started. So you have to get started. If you don't get started, you don't do hockey stick. To do hockey stick, you got to do the second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth one too. And the 8th and 16th and the 32 and the 64 and the 256 and you've got to do that. And one does it. If one looks back at the automobile, and you said, 1886, the Daimler patent, for the first car, 1908 is Ford. It takes and to then keep it going from Ford, and from Ford, at least it was the objective, at least as we read back, is affordability was really important. It wasn't just for the rich folk. Because if it would have been just for the rich folk, there probably weren't enough rich folk to create enough of a mass that in fact allows you to have a hockey stick. So those are really important. And unfortunately with this, because of the infrastructure requirement, And the reason why I argue we haven't had automated highways, even though, you know, GM may have wanted it as far back as 1939 or in the 50s and 60s, and the videos we've seen them and whatever and so on, was, you know, GM's not going to build an automated car until New Jersey DOT builds an automated highway. New Jersey DOT is not going to build an automated highway unless there are automated cars.
Right.
So we have a real chicken and egg problem here. We need both the chicken and the egg, and otherwise it doesn't go anywhere. And here we did this Morgantown thing, and some of us, oh cool, it's a big vehicle, and my goodness, it doesn't, and it's only a few stations, and it's really not, it's not good enough. But in fact, for what it did, it's done it well. And it's continued to survive, and it's continued to do that, and it's safety. I mean, you know, I don't know, maybe a student got a twisted ankle at one point or something like that on it, or, you know, when they were trying to stuff it with who knows how many students, because instead of stuffing, you know, Volkswagen Beetles, you know, University of West Virginia students stuff Morgantown cars or something like that, whatever. But it's been, you know, the automation, and, you know, there's no attendant on board. Okay.
What was your role in Morgantown? In Morgantown, just for everyone's knowledge,
it was more of a somewhat advisory role, and basically some of the research that we were doing on operational characteristics and so on was used there, and it wasn't directly, but it certainly was as part of it. And my whole approach was to take and extend it. And we had designed a system for Las Vegas that would have been like fantastic, connecting the airport to all the casinos and providing, you know, real, you know, door-to-door nonstop mobility. And Las Vegas, it's like, of course, it's, you know, it's almost the perfect environment, because you can bring the vehicles inside the hotels, and, you know, and, yeah, direct access in the airport, blah, 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 you know, you never have to go outside. And it was amazing how naive we were.
and that was because what were you naive about?
First of all, you know, who provides that kind of mobility then and now? Cab drivers. Okay, you're going to do this. Guess what you're going to do? Unemployed cab drivers. Guess what?
Sure.
Not that they're going to break your legs, but they're going to break your legs, quote unquote. Okay, friendly sort of way. That's number one. Okay, so yeah, and they live there. They're there. You know, here we are, outsiders from Princeton, whatever. Oh yeah, okay. Good luck, right? I mean, I mean, your throat's cut from here to here. You don't even know it until you look down and you see all the blood on the floor, right? You know, I mean, they're so good at it. Second thing is, we're really naive. Guess what? The last thing a casino owner wants is good mobility.
Yeah.
Because once they have you in there, they don't want you to leave. They don't want.
And this was a time
until you go over there, right? Until you have no money left in your pocket, right? Then they throw you out the back door. Who cares?
Of course, this was when the casinos were owned by different companies too, right? So it was a different time.
They were all owned by different entities.
Yeah.
Last thing they wanted to, I mean, really, I mean, here we are coming in here. Nice professors from Princeton. We're going to provide you good mobility, and it's going to be, and we're going to make it free. It's going to be free. How could it be free? Hell, you put the slot machines in the damn thing. So you know, as you're going from the airport, you're you know, and you take the excess revenue you pay for the sucker. I mean, good mobility wasn't an objective. Now, I think that
Yeah.
many of the hotels are owned by, they're like 2 or 3 conglomerates there and so on. And so between them and whatever. But my goodness, I mean, talk about being naive. Ugh.